Good morning and welcome to this morning's Knowledge Bank. Today's session is going to be hosted by Motivate and they are going to be discussing optimizing usage of your residential gym. If you have any questions throughout the webinar, please submit them via the Q&A button at the bottom of your screen and we will try to get through as many as possible at the end. The webinar is also being recorded and will be available to watch back via the News on the Block YouTube channel later today. Without further ado, I will now hand you over to Richard and Jenny.
Morning, everyone. I'm Jenny from Motivate, and we've also got Richard here as well today. So we are here today to help you get a better understanding of how to get the most out of your residential gym and maximise the number of people using that facility. First of all, we thought it might be useful just to go through a little bit of a background about the company with you and also a little bit of background about our career history, I guess, as well. So I'm going to hand over to Richard and he's going to just kick off with a little bit of company background first.
Morning, everyone. We are Motivate and we've been established for over 20 years. We're market leader in residential gym design and installation and management of residential gyms. We're generally in the process from start to finish, which puts us in a good position, really. So, from design or concept with a developer and install right through to, further maintenance for years and years through the facility. So we're in a good place to be held accountable for any design flaws that we might have. We're not just going to kind of sell the equipment and run away and leave you guys to pick up all the pieces. So over the years, we've learned, a lot, and I'm hoping to share some of these things with you today. Me personally, I've been with Motivate for 19 years. I've pretty much done every job within the company that there is, from health club manager, engineer, installs, inductions. I was doing massage for a while. So my current job is currently looking after the maintenance department. That's the gym, it's the dry side, and also the wet side, the pool and spa stuff as well.
And my background, I've worked in the fitness industry for over 20 years. Again, kind of come from a personal training and a management background. I'm one of the directors of Motivate, and I oversee our personal training department, specifically mainly looking at our unmanned facilities, and we've also got 2 commercial personal training studios also. But I guess more specifically for today's discussion, I oversee our personal training department, who look after over 100 unmanned facilities throughout the UK. And as part of the services we deliver within these developments, we offer anything from gym inductions, group exercise classes, wellbeing events, workshops, anything really that gets the residents engaged with using their fitness space and wellbeing space. So today we're going to look at how we can optimise your residential gym in 2 ways. The first is Richard's going to look at this. So we're going to look at the maintenance aspect of things. So looking at whether your residential gym stands the test of time through making sure you've got the correct on-site checks in place, making sure you're maintaining your gym, your pool, your spa correctly, and then also looking at whether you've got the correct contracts in place as well. And then secondly, I'm going to look at, once you've got your all singing, all dancing, well-maintained gym, how do you then make sure that that gym is actually well used by the residents who live there? I think there is an assumption that when we have an on-site gym, the gym will get used by residents, but there's often barriers faced to using a gym. So my job today is to help you understand those barriers and how you can overcome those. So for example, if equipment is out of order, or if the space isn't engaging, inspiring, or if somebody just doesn't know how to use the equipment, then they're probably not going to actually use the gym, and that gym space could become a little bit redundant or not being used to the maximum potential. So I'm here today to help you make sure the residents are using that facility. So I'm going to hand you over to Richard first, and he will look at the maintenance aspects.
Thanks, Jen. So we're obviously going to be talking about how to increase the expected lifespan of your gym equipment or plant equipment. And in turn, this should also ensure a safe and comfortable environment for the user and reduce breakdowns, like any plant on your facility. So essentially, though, first up, we want to make sure that the gym equipment that you've got in your gym is up to spec. So you should have, I mean, some of you guys would have, I guess, been given a brand new spanking gym, brilliant. Others would have had a gym that's probably needs a refurb or is tiring. Either way, you want to make sure you've got full commercial gym equipment. You might get away with some semi-commercial stuff, but you have to make sure the spec is fully commercial, nothing from Argos or Amazon or anything home use. There might be an issue if someone essentially gets injured with non-commercial kit, and that could be an issue. So first up, make sure it's all commercial. Don't allow, you can probably see the picture here on the left, residents sometimes with good intentions, bring down their own equipment into the gym. But that's often, home use equipment, and that should really be removed. You can see on the picture on the left, an example of someone's bringing down some free weights. There's not storage for it. There's trip hazards, and it's just not suitable for that environment. Also, not just kit, but floor, especially with the free weights. Flooring is really important. If someone is bringing in free weights, with any free weights, you should have protection for your floor. You don't have protection for your floor, when people drop weights, which they inevitably will do, it will damage your screen underneath your flooring, and you'll have to rip up the floor and redo the whole thing. So if you are looking to add free weights, make sure you have a proper rack to hold them on, a bench to do for the residents to do the weights on, and the flooring. Generally, we say that you should have 1 mil of protection per 1 kilo of dumbbell. Again, it's a bit of a general rule, but that's best. And also, ideally, you wouldn't have carpet in your gym. Obviously, it's unhygienic. It's not easily cleaned. So generally we have a vinyl, posh vinyl that is easily cleaned, wiped down for sweat, etc. Now, Jenny will go into this later on, but a high proportion of the equipment is broken or won't be used correctly. So it's best to have basic instruction. Every machine should have basic instruction on how to use it. But also, ideally, all the residents will be fully inducted in the gym, so there's no chance of them pulling it the wrong way or doing something it wasn't supposed to do, which then we'll go into later. Signage is an important thing to have in place. It might not be the answer to everything, but at least you're showing that you're proactive. Stuff on the signs. We've got the Motivate Gym Etiquette guidelines on there. So you want to be telling them to wipe down equipment after use, not drop free weights, wear clothes, things like that. And this will ensure that, hopefully those people will stand by the rules. Cleaning station. So you should have, ideally, a cleaning station within your gym, which is a wipe-based dispenser. You do sometimes get the bottles of liquid that are in the gym. I wouldn't advise this, because what the residents tend to do if they clean it, is that they will swamp the equipment with loads and loads of water, and it will damage the equipment. These wipes, they evaporate quickly, and they're nice and safe. You're not going to get that danger of all the water ingress into the computer screens or into the bike itself. Moving on to environment, you'll find a bit of a pattern, throughout this, but essentially, keeping your plant in the right environment and then monitoring that is, number one. So if most of you have AC in your gym, you want to make sure that obviously that is serviced and is on a regular contract. The gym temperature you should keep to around 18 degrees if you can, and you want to avoid any sudden changes in temperature because that can cause condensation, which causes moisture, which causes rust. And also you want to keep the humidity to about 40 to 55%. Studies show that, you know, at 60%, rust significantly increases, and ultimately it will damage the internals. You'll have more breakdowns. There'll be less value in it for any buyback value that you might have on the equipment. Sometimes the gyms and the pools share the same environment, which doesn't bode well. I've had it in a few gyms. The pool environment is obviously generally a lot more moist, and it's got that chlorine in the air as well, which will increase the chances of rusting. So again, if you do have that, you want to look at some kind of different ventilation solution, if possible. I mean, obviously, if that's not possible, you might want to look at preventing rust by putting a protective layer of like WD-40 or something like that on the equipment, just to kind of help prevent rust as much as you can. Now, so if we obviously run by those rules and, you know, we're keeping the equipment well monitored and clean and well used by the residents, then ultimately you should be seeing in a medium use facility, full commercial cardio should be lasting you 5 or 7 years. And the resistance should be lasting you probably more, probably 10 or 12 years. So that's really where you want to aim. I mean, it does depend on the number of users, you know, how many pieces of equipment you've got, etc., etc. But you want to be at least getting commercial kit 5 to 7 years. Commercial kit is used to being hammered at commercial health clubs, which are there, you know, for days and days and days. So in Resi, they generally have a little bit lighter usage, hence why you normally get them to go for a little bit longer. So maintenance. So how can we help to keep the maintenance? What can you do on site? Yeah, to keep the maintenance on point. So I know it's pretty boring, but cleaning, you know, cleaning is key. If you need a contractor on site that ideally would clean daily, it's not always possible. Okay, so weekly is fine as well. They should be cleaning with a neutral pH. With antibacterial properties on the microfiber cloth. Again, they want to spray that into the microfiber cloth and wipe down the equipment where you generally get sweat. Sweat is acidic, and it will, if it stays on plastic or metal, it will stain, and that's a real problem, and it makes equipment look a lot older than it is. Sweat can also drip into internals and cause you issues that way. So we want to get that sweat off as soon as possible. And you want to make sure that the equipment is left dry as well. Don't forget the floor around cardio. Wipe around the floor as well. Make sure they completely wipe the floor. There's a lot of sweat that ends up on the floor. And then if they've got any screen wipes, a lot of the equipment nowadays comes with touch screens and stuff like that. We want to use screen wipes like you would for a laptop or anything like that. That's the cardio. With regards to the resistance, you want to wipe down the upholstery, antibacterial, wipe down the upholstery, wipe down the framework for those. You also want to make sure your equipment is working and it's not broken. Again, ideally you'd have a daily check sheet, which is evident and signed. Weekly is fine as well. On the checks that should be done is like, you know, you want someone to use the equipment. Essentially, you want to check for loose bolts and screws. You want to make sure that those machines are mechanically sound. With the resistance, always check the cables, make sure they're not fraying. And obviously, if you do find a problem, you want to put that out of order so it can't be used, and you know, contact your maintenance contractor. Another issue that can cause problems is that no one ever reports a fault and expects it to be repaired. So it depends on your site. I mean, some site, obviously, you'll have, members of staff on site, concierges, etc., that can check the machines, which is great. Some of the sites we look after aren't manned. So in those situations, you want to make sure that the residents are aware of how they report a fault of their gym equipment, if that's just a sign on the notice board, or more advanced stuff that's coming out now that we're launching is like a QR code, so they can scan a QR code and report a fault direct to us. And then we contact the property manager and say, listen, we've had this report through, do you want us to come out or not? And they can decide if they want us to come out or not. So, but obviously equipment that is broken, that is being used, will make it worse and or could be a health and safety issue. And just a real quick one, troubleshooting, the amount of problems we've had, and it's that the equipment has just been switched off or something like that. So, your contractor that you use should be able to take you through general troubleshooting before you invest in that call out charge. Some kit is powered, and some kit is self-powered. So treadmills are generally powered, and bikes you have to get on to get them going. The amount of call outs we've had in the residents saying, "Oh, it's not working." It's because they haven't pedaled on the machine or anything like that. So just be aware of those things as well. Make yourself and your staff comfortable with the equipment. If you're running inductions, I would definitely get them to have an induction as well, so they're fully aware of all the equipment, how it works and everything like that. So on the next slide, I've got just an example of a checklist of everything there, where it's blacked out, where it's not really appropriate for the piece of equipment. It's a thorough checklist. They go through it all, they sign it off, and you've got evidence that that equipment has been checked. As I said, this is on top of whatever external specialist contract you have looking after your gym equipment, which brings us on to your specialist contractor. So you'll want someone knows what they're doing to come in. They generally, the frequency of what you want them to do will be dependent on your number of users, the amount of equipment, or each type of equipment, what on-site maintenance you do have. But generally, you should be fine with biannual servicing from a contractor. We do have sites where we do quarterly because they're quite intense, or they don't have any members of staff on site at all, and looking for that extra reassurance. With how you guys know, with contractors, you're obviously looking for a contractor that has the right qualifications. So gym equipment is funny, is there's not like an official qualification to maintaining gym equipment. You want a company that has good engineers, experienced engineers, and that company themselves, obviously you want kind of like a safe contractor CHAS type thing to back that up as well, which I think most of that's just a given, really. You can get manufacturers to look after your equipment. They're really good. If you've got older equipment or equipment for different brands, that you might struggle because they only generally look after their brands. And also, I mean, sometimes we find our customers find it quite nice that a separate company kind of looks over the equipment from the manufacturer. It's almost, you get like a second opinion. So if something is not right, and when it's under warranty, we can hold that manufacturer accountable with a second opinion. So some people like that as well. You want to make sure that their job sheets are easy to read, they're comprehensive, there's pictures before and after the maintenance, and videos if possible. And for resi sites especially, I mean, you do get contracts that include all parts, labour and everything like that. Just be careful, because ultimately, as I've said before, like, this equipment is used to getting absolutely hammered. And I think sometimes if you are paying extra to have, extended warranty up to 5 years, sometimes that you're paying something that you probably won't need. It's nice to have it all in one package and there's no surprises, but ultimately they are quite expensive to have an all-inclusive package. Also, look for the small print. A lot of them only have a limit on some of the screens, although they say it's like a all-inclusive, but actually they limit you to how many screens they'll replace for you. Next slide, please, Jen. That's just an example of job sheet. As I said, easy to read, check and pass green. If there's a problem, it's orange or red. Pictures before, after. Yeah, not nice and easy. Moving on, some of you guys will have pool and spas, and essentially these are quite intense facilities, as you'll probably all be aware. They're difficult to manage. There's lots of legislation, you know, health and safety at work, management of health and safety, COSH, you know, management of spa pools, HSE management of spa pools. A good one to go by is PUTAG, Code of Practice. If you've not had the delight of reading through that document, I suggest that you do. And obviously you'll all have your SOPs and UOPs. I'd strongly recommend getting a second company in every now and again to audit you, just to make sure you've got everything you need. And you know, essentially these facilities are generally really important to the residents. If the pool goes down or the spa, sauna and steam room, you know, you'll get, as you're aware, they'll be on your case pretty quickly. So they're really important to the residents as well. But we're going to concentrate on the core thing when it comes to your pool and your spa. We talked earlier with the gym equipment about the environment that it's in, which is the air. The environment that we want to test and keep balanced is the water, because the water essentially is everywhere within your plant. It touches everything, right? So the first thing, rule number one, chemical balance. You should be doing daily readings, and they should be carried out by your staff, and they should be carried out consistently and really accurately. And you should encourage that they get trained on testing as much as possible. It's such a precise thing, to the point where if you don't fill up the beaker even to the right meniscus level, it can affect the results. It might tell you a result that is false, which you then might calibrate your dosing unit, and you can throw the whole thing off. Yeah. So make sure you keep the staff well trained on that. The equipment you should be using to test the water is a photometer. This should be calibrated kind of every 6 months. And don't use test strips. They're not really reliable. So you want to make sure that your chlorine level is up to the correct level, and that your pH is also at the correct level. pH, the reason why the pH is so important is because it affects the how good the chlorine will work. So if your pH is at 8, essentially your chlorine won't be working. It won't be having the effect of disinfecting any nasties that are in that water. So that's why you want to keep that pH within that range. It's just as important as the chlorine. So day-to-day balance is kind of like day-to-day chemical balance is testing every day, making sure that chlorine and pH is where you need it to be. Any long time without any chlorine in will make you susceptible to nasties getting into that water. More medium to long term, it'd be worth doing, if you haven't had this done before, worth getting, I mean, you can do it on site, is the Langlia test, which helps you understand the water chemistry of that pool. So we're talking essentially about all the parameters within that body of water, which is alkalinity, pH, calcium hardness, TDS, and it gives you a figure at the end, and it tells you if that water is corrosive or if it is scale forming. And it gives you a score, you know, minus 0.1 or 0.2, 0.3 is acidic, and then plus 0.1, 2, 3, etc. is scale forming. So you want that to be as near zero as possible, and ultimately, you know, you want to. I'd take it once a month if everything's good. I'd take it once a week if you're looking to adjust bits of that water, like the alkalinity, to get that Langlia index to near a zero. Really simple, but bather hygiene. You know, the people shower before they go in. There's less contaminants, less chlorines needed to neutralize it. Less backwashing is needed, which means less heating and water wastage and everything like that. So communicating to residents to at least have a shower before using the facilities can really make a difference, save you money on chemicals as well, don't forget. You really want a regular cleaning routine by your on-site cleaners. So, you know, you want your your pool to be vacuumed, the tile bands, especially in London, there's a hard water area, you tile bands, you get a lot of scum lines, you want that to be cleaned down. And you want all your baskets and what have you empty during your maintenance as well in the plant room. You can look at pool covers. You want a high quality pool cover when it's not in use. This helps to, if you're outside pool, it helps keep the debris off, reduces evaporation, reduces heat loss, and it essentially reduces the workload on your plant. Again, we talked about water, air, your pool hall, and the environment that is kept to is crucial. So your air temperature within your pool hall should just be 1 or 2 degrees higher than your water temperature, because that's comfortable for the users, so they don't get out and they're feeling, you know, they're freezing ultimately. So for leisure pools is what resi pools are kind of classed as. So you're looking at a temperature of about 28 to 29 degrees. As I said, air temperature about 1 or 2 above that. And humidity wise, you want to try and keep the humidity at about 50 to 60% to prevent condensation and mold growth throughout the facility. Microbiological testing is really important. It's you have to have these to be compliant. It kind of tells you the quality of your water, and that ultimately, if you do get nasties in there, it's got to be because there wasn't, you know, you've had disinfectant levels at a lower level than it should be, or pH levels higher than they should be, and it's allowed something to grow in there. You know, obviously, send it, you know, you should be getting these done. They get sent by the lab, and then you need to have a clear trail of that test, what was done after to make that unsatisfactory test better. It's normally kind of shocking the pool or the spa with chlorine, etc. There's loads of other plant which, you know, we won't have time to go into today as well. It's not just the pool water and the air. You know, you really need a really thorough PPM schedule in place. You'll have stuff attached to your pools so far as UV. You'll have balance tanks that need cleaning out every 6 months. You'll have media filters. Filters need changing for spas once every year, but it's worth getting the media checked to see the condition of it every year. Pools is every 5 years. Your dosing system, make sure your AHU is serviced by a contractor as well, so it's keeping the air temperature at the right level. And essentially, you'll want to have a specialist contractor come in, and it will depend on your site and your setup of your site. It's always good to have an expert to go to, but you'll need to have some people have like I've been to sites where they have a caretaker, a handyman on site, and they've been there for years and they've been operating the pool and they do it really, really well. They're gold, you know. Keep them. They know what they're doing. Ideally, you want to have anyone that is looking after your pool on a week-by-week basis to have a pool plant operator's certificate, which is like a 3-day course, which you can. I mean, if you look online, you can get your guys on that. And ultimately, you want to look at what tasks you're happy for that person to do on your site. You know, are you happy for them to do all the backwashing, to calibrate the probes? And also you've got to think about the dosing of the chemicals. You've got to top up these chemicals, right? So are you happy for that member of staff to top up those chemicals? You're happy with the risks, and also you've got to have quite a robust risk assessment for doing all that as well. So we generally have like contracts which we come in once a week for, and we do everything essentially: backwash, top up the chemicals, etc. And we have other contracts that we come in monthly, and during those, you know, the weeks during, then the on-site staff look after the pool. So, you know, either works. If you're getting a contract, you want to make sure that they're ISPE, which is the Institute of Swimming Pool Engineers. It's an individual qualification, and you want experienced engineers, and as a company, you want them with safe contract or something that they've got in place. Next slide, please, Jen. So this is an example of when we have these on our sites, we put them up on the desk so people understand what the correct ranges are for chlorine, pH, color coded, what the action should be if it comes out of this range, etc., etc. So I'd recommend you have something like that in place for your members of staff on site. And then we're going to run through. A lot of you will also have steam and saunas. We're going to run through this quickly, but ultimately, I mean, there's loads of different. Always go by manufacturer guidelines. Essentially, there's loads of different types of sauna steam rooms. So obviously, go by the manufacturer guidelines. But I'm just going to take your simple steam rooms. So cleaning with steam rooms, really essential. Okay, your benches, your walls, your floors. Use a non-abrasive mild cleaner, which is antibacterial. You can also use organic cleaners as well, but go by the manufacturer guidelines. Make sure on the steam rooms, make sure the glass gets cleaned. Drainage in your steam room often gets overlooked. Yeah, water is constantly going down that drain. Make sure that is constantly looked at and cleaned out. Ventilation, really important. So you want to make sure that you have a well ventilated steam room, because what that does is it allows the steam to come underneath and creates more steam, and also prevents mold growth inside. So a lot of these steam rooms have like a vent in the top. Make sure that's at the right level. London is a hard water area. A steam room is essentially a kettle that's constantly on boil. So you'll have, if you're in London, you'll have quite a high buildup of minerals. So you want to make sure that, I mean, ideally you have a softener that goes into your building. If you've got a softener that goes into your building, that's great. You can have softeners directly attached to your steam rooms as well, which will really help how long your steam room kettle will last. Certain cylinders within the steam room have different ratings, so make sure you've got the right rating for your kettle. You want to maintain that steam generator, so that's the expensive bit, right? It needs to be looked at, I'd say once a quarter, looked at and see if it needs descaling or replacing. Some of them are replaceable. Descaling of the steam cylinder is essential. And you want to obviously address any repairs promptly to prevent them from getting worse. Temperature, again, environment. You want to keep your steam room to about 40 to 50 degrees, and your humidity, I mean, it's a steam room, so it needs to be at 80 or 100%. User guidelines, really important. Residents need to understand, how to get the most out of the steam room as well, what to do, what not to do, etc. And then we're going to talk about saunas briefly. So I'm going with a finished sauna, which is kind of like your standard sauna. You get heaters that are kind of sit underneath all the benches and you can't really see. You don't need to do anything. And then you've got the saunas which are standalone. They've got coals on, and residents put water on it. With the standalone heaters, they'll come with like some sauna rocks. You want to make sure that those sauna rocks are covering all the elements, that they will break down over time, so it's important that you replace them. I mean, ultimately you don't want water directly being thrown on the elements, because it can make them warp and just last not as long. Environment, temperature wise, you want a thermometer within the sauna itself. You want to keep your sauna, well, the guidelines are, I mean, you can keep it between 80 and 100. 100's quite high. I wouldn't have it quite that high, but 80 and 90 seems to work. And the humidity levels are only about between 5 and 20%. You want to monitor that, have evidence that it's been kept at that level. You'll need a specialist contractor to come in and check the elements. These are the things that generally will warp. A sign that they're warping is the machine will trip, there'll be a lack of heat within the sauna. So keep an eye out for that. Again, water quality, if hard water's been thrown on it, it's not going to last as long. So if you've got a softener going into building, that would be great. Inspection of wood, really important. So we're looking at any burnt or scorched wood. If we're looking at wood cracks, warping, and you're looking at make sure the fireboard is in place as well. A common thing is that residents will leave newspapers or towels on the coals. So you want to be making sure that that's getting checked regularly, and you want to make sure that no one is leaving anything around the combustible around the heat source. As you can see from the pictures, cleaning is really important. It gets forgotten sometimes. You can lift these wooden panels out 9 times out of 10. The floor gets disgusting. Make sure that gets thoroughly cleaned. And also there's a picture there of what, your wood can get stained, and ultimately you're going to have to replace that wood, sand it down, add some treatment on, etc. Keep an eye on that wood. The most important thing is if it's looking, dark and very, very dry, that is a fire risk hazard as well. User guidelines, make sure they know what they're doing in the steam room. They're not just throwing water on the coals, they're not shaving in there and all the lovely other things that they do in there. Yeah. And then just, as I said, a quick summary, always go by manufacturer guidelines, because that's, that is specific to your plant. Cleaning regimes, so important. The environment that it's in, the air, the water environment, user guidelines, inspections need to be documented to show that you've done your due diligence at keeping it within that environmental range, and use special contractors on a PPM basis to help you and your on-site staff manage those 2 facilities as best they can.
Cool, thanks for that, Rich. So now I'm going to look at the gym user experience and making sure that they get the gym users of your residential facility get the most positive experience they can. Not only so that they want to use the gym, but they enjoy the gym every time we use that facility. So at the start of the presentation, we talked a little bit about how there's this assumption made that because the gym is on somebody's doorstep, we can probably incorrectly assume that they might use the gym. Now, you might have your regular gym goers who will go, but sometimes there might be barriers for other people about using that gym facility. So my job today is just to help you look at how we can overcome these barriers and really optimise the gym usage. So in 2022, Nuffield Health did a study about exercise, and they found that 47% of females and 34% of males hadn't exercised in the last 12 months. So if you compare that to the number of residents who are living within your development, that could be a high number of residents who aren't actually using your facility that you've invested in putting in on your site. So again, let's look at the ways that we can increase that footfall into the gym. So the first thing I'm going to do is look at the interior of the gym. I'm not going to spend too long on this section, but we're just going to look at ways that we can, maybe some quick and easy wins we can do to make that space a little bit more engaging. If we were working with a client from the start of the gym design journey, then we can obviously give an insight into trends from an interior design point of view. But what if you have got a gym that just needs a little bit of TLC? It's been there for maybe 5+ years. Needs a little bit of TLC, it needs a bit of sprucing up. I think historically a lot of gyms have been designed where they've just all been painted white or they've just all been painted grey, and it's just not an inspiring place to walk into. So an example I would give you is we work with one particular gym, used to all be painted white inside. I had to do a site visit to the gym. It's an unmanned facility. I had to do a site visit there a couple of weeks ago. And I walked in, one wall had been painted in a really bright colour. The other wall had a graffiti mural on it. And all of a sudden that space was immediately transformed and became an inspiring place to go work out. So you could consider things like graffiti walls, bright colours in the gym, maybe some inspiring wall vinyls or pictures up on the wall, inspirational quotes, and also consider a bit of maybe greenery as well. So there is a trend of living walls in facilities. If you can't go along the lines of a living wall, maybe even just some plants in your gym space, especially if you've got an area that's dedicated to maybe yoga or holistic workouts or some stretching. That will just make that area a little bit more appealing for that type of work. Rich has already touched on some of this as well, but making sure the gym is clean and tidy, making sure the equipment is working. There's nothing worse than walking into a gym and being faced by equipment strewn on the floor and having to think you've got to spend 5 minutes picking that up before you actually start your workout, or going over to a cross trainer and the screen is dirty before you want to work it, before you want to use it. There's nothing motivational around that at all. If you've got notice boards, make sure they're up to date. If you don't offer gym inductions, make sure you've got equipment guidance in place so people know how to use the equipment. And another thing to consider is potentially looking at an area for virtual workouts. So there's a huge trend at the moment where people enjoy following a workout on a tablet or on a mobile phone. You don't have to have a separate studio space for this, but you could dedicate a space within your gym area where you put some additional mats down and allow people to just do their virtual workouts there. Okay. So the next thing I'm going to look at is how we get it right from the start. So how do we engage with that resident from the start of their fitness journey of using your gym facility? And this, it doesn't matter whether this is an existing gym or a brand new gym. What we're going to look at here is looking at maybe offering launch events. So a launch event for a brand new gym, or regular open days if you've already got an existing gym. And these might be done every quarter, every 6 months, every year, or whenever you know you've got an influx of residents coming into your facility. And the idea behind these launch events and open days is to create that, I guess, warm and welcoming first start of somebody's journey to actually using your fitness and well-being space, and try to break down any initial barriers with people. So as part of your launch events, I would look at offering things like group inductions, or maybe something like equipment how-tos. So an example with this would be, you might find that somebody's used to using a treadmill, but they go into your gym and the treadmill is either a different brand or the screen is much more advanced from a technological point of view than what they're used to using. So if we do some equipment how-tos, then next time the resident goes into that gym, they'll feel confident about how to use that particular piece of equipment, and they'll be feeling confident with any tech as well related to the cardiovascular equipment too. I'd also suggest doing something like virtual class how-tos if you do have a space for virtual classes. The feedback we sometimes get from residents is, we have this amazing space for virtual classes, but because they're a bit afraid of maybe how to use the tech associated with setting up a virtual class, they just go into the class space and do their own thing. So if we do some how-to sessions in how to use the virtual class system, that will encourage them to actually follow those virtual classes in the space. Other simple things are trainer meet and greets, taster classes and PT sessions, and collaborating with local wellbeing and health-based businesses, just to try to create this initial welcoming environment into using the gym. Other things you could consider are things like goodie bags. And it maybe sounds a little bit daft to say it, but giving somebody a branded towel, a branded water bottle can create a sense of belonging when people are going into the gym. And then the final thing to look at is creating a wellbeing map for your local area. So we obviously want to encourage people into using the gym facility on site, but we can also look at how we might collaborate with other wellbeing providers in the local area. So we just kind of almost extend that wellbeing space that somebody wants to use within your development. So are there local physios and sports massage people you can collaborate with to offer discounts for your residents? Collaborations with healthy food eateries, cafes, smoothie bars. How about creating a wellbeing map that's got local running routes, local cycle routes, local walking routes on there? And again, like I said before, just to kind of almost extend that wellbeing space your residents have access to. Okay, so the next step I'm going to look at is inductions. So there's probably a few of you sat here at the moment going, inductions, do we really need an induction? Surely everybody knows how to use a gym, or most people we speak to know how to use a gym. Now, we would advise, especially if you've got an unmanned facility, that you offer gym inductions as best practice. Essentially, picking up on what Rich mentioned earlier, it makes sure the residents know how to use the equipment on site safely, and it makes sure that they're not going to get injured using it, or maybe even break the equipment by using it incorrectly. So we find the inductions are a really important process, because once that resident in an unmanned facility, once that resident starts using the gym, they've got no other touch points with the trainer to ask them if they're unsure of anything. Whereas in a gym induction, the trainer should go through every single piece of kit within that facility and explain how to use it. So I think there's two things you need to consider from an induction point of view. So firstly, what do your health and safety documents say? What do your risk assessments say? What do your insurance documents say? And make sure you're compliant with both of those. Secondly, I think then what you need to look at is how do you envisage your gym user journey looking? How much do you want that gym user to engage with using the facility? And the likelihood is, if somebody has an induction, they will then use the gym facility more because they feel more confident in using the equipment, and they feel more familiar in using the equipment as well. So if we revert back to that Nuffield study I quoted earlier, when they looked at the 47% of females and 34% of females who didn't exercise, these three reasons were the reasons quoted why they didn't. So 60% of people, lack of motivation, 32% of people didn't know how to get started, and then embarrassment was also a key factor for some people. So certainly with those last 2 points, an induction really helps to overcome this. If 32% of people don't know how to get started, we can narrow that number right down by doing a really thorough gym induction with people and showing them how to use all of the equipment. And also that might overcome some of the embarrassment factor as well. So I want you to consider this situation. So you've got a new resident who comes on site. They've used a gym somewhere before, always gone in, done some strength training and used the treadmill. No gym induction is offered at this particular site. The resident walks into the gym, they go over to use the treadmill, and they have got no idea how to use the treadmill screen. All of a sudden, that person's going to probably feel quite embarrassed. They're going to feel a bit like maybe all eyes are on them, and they're going to just probably walk away and maybe even walk out of the gym, and maybe even never step foot inside there again because they're a bit embarrassed of that situation and they don't know how to use the equipment. Whereas if you offer a gym induction, whether you're a manned facility or an unmanned facility, you can overcome that barrier quite quickly and all of a sudden turn that first experience of using the gym from something quite negative to something really, really positive by having gone through an induction with a qualified personal trainer. So the other reasons for having an induction are it gives the person a chance to orientate themselves around the facility, build confidence in the surroundings, and also gives them the opportunity to ask a qualified personal trainer any questions about a facility, especially if that's an unmanned facility as well. The next thing I want to just briefly consider is the process and the approach around a gym induction. So traditionally, a lot of gym inductions have been delivered as a face-to-face instructor-led induction with a personal trainer on site showing somebody how to use the equipment. We're finding that there is a trend at the moment and more demand for virtual inductions. So I guess each has its benefits. If you are looking for maybe a more personal touch, you've got a facility where you think there's going to be a lot of newbies who are using the gym and you want more of a customer-friendly approach, then the instructor-led gym induction is probably the right route for you to go down. However, if you've got a site where you have got a lot of people who've used the gym before and people just want to get started in using the gym as quickly as they possibly can do, then you might find that a virtual induction is a better option, because that virtual induction is more convenient. They can do it at a time and a place convenient to them. Once that induction's done, they can get their fob access and start using the gym pretty much immediately. And then another couple of things to consider with inductions are, especially if it's an unmanned facility, who will pay for the induction? Will it be the resident, or will it come out of the service charge, estate management funded? And whatever process you use for gym inductions and also group exercise, which we're going to look at next, make sure you have got the easy sign-up process you possibly can do, so that people can just quickly sign up for their induction and then get started on that fitness journey. Okay, so the last thing I'm going to look at is how we can use group exercise and workshops to create a community, not only within the gym, but within your whole development as well. So we've had experience before where we've offered group exercise classes. And when I use this example, I'm talking of an unmanned facility, but it would span out to a facility that is a manned facility as well. That we've had experience where residents have built a really nice community within that class, but it's then spilled out into the rest of the development. So you'll find that they start socialising together. I know at one particular site, the people who came to classes then set up their own book club. And it just really, if you've got a site where community is a really strong ethos of yours, you will find that group exercise really helps to build on that community aspect. And one other thing to note before we look at this a little bit more is that if you don't have a separate studio, that doesn't mean you can't offer group exercise. At some of our sites without a studio, we just do gym fit classes where we take a small part of the gym and we run a class there, or we do classes outside. So don't feel if you don't have a studio, you can't offer group exercise. Other benefits of group exercise are that you will find there's an accountability built up with the instructor and with each other in that class. So all of a sudden you've got a better optimised usage of that space because people will go because of the accountability. People will also build up their confidence. So somebody who might not have used the gym before might start going to classes because they prefer the group element, but then they start building up their confidence in particular exercise techniques, and then they start using the gym, and all of a sudden your gym becomes a busier and more well-utilised space. You might also find that you get more females using the gym as well. So if we go back to that Nuffield study, there was a higher proportion of females who didn't exercise compared to males, but we find group exercise attracts more females than males. So again, you'll find that that wellbeing space becomes more utilised by females if you start offering group exercise. And then just finally moving on to workshops. Workshops are a great way to engage with people who might not use the gym because you're putting on something a little bit different. So I wouldn't put on just like a yoga workshop if you're already offering yoga classes. Do something different, and I've put some examples of things there. But they certainly will start attracting people who don't use the gym. And they might not come, they might go on to use the gym, they might not, but at least then they've been introduced to the wellbeing space you've got, and you've got another way of utilising that wellbeing space too. So I have just got a little summary sheet of the things you can introduce to increase engagement and increase usage of your facilities here. And that's us done with everything we wanted to present today. So thank you for your time. And if you do have any questions, we'll just have a look in the chat now. Thank you.
Hi guys. I'm just having a look now. There's no questions at the moment, but I'll give it a moment in case anyone wants to submit one now. No, nothing coming through. I think that means you've covered everything. Okay, no worries. Thanks everyone for joining us. Thank you, Richard and Jenny, for presenting today. That was brilliant.
My pleasure.
If anyone would like to watch the webinar back, the recording will be live later today. If you'd like a copy of the slides, please let me know and I can ask Jenny or Richard to send them to you. Oh, I think we've actually just got one question pop up. Someone's asking about insurance, so they're concerned about liability. I'm not sure in what context. That's from Robert. I don't know if you can elaborate a little bit more in what context. So they're asking about the minimum requirements, I think, for liability insurance.
I mean, this might be more one for Jen, but essentially, it is your insurance company that will help you out if there is a claim. So you need to make sure that you're doing everything that your insurance company requires you to do for them to cover you. Some stipulate that they want full inductions. Some don't really care. Some want you to, they've got their own form that they want you to get residents to fill out. Just be led by your insurance company from a liability point of view. A bottom line liability point of view. Go with your the advice from your own insurers. I mean, on top of that, you've got all the the health and safety compliant things that you can do on top of that, but the basic line is with your insurance and your liability.
Okay, thank you. Okay, there's no more questions, so thank you again for joining us. If anyone would like to register for our upcoming webinars, you can have a look on the News on the Block website. Otherwise, I will send an email later today with a link to the recording. Thank you very much. Have a good rest of your day. Bye.
Thank you. Take care.